and talk about succulents, which are my favorite plants. Um, I want to first of all talk to you about them because there's so many misconceptions. They are drought tolerant, but they are not cactus. They do not live in the desert. They live in South Africa or Madagascar. They like to be watered, but not too much. And I think the main thing people do is overwater. That's what kills most succulents is overwatering. Or they put the saucer underneath the pot. Don't put a saucer underneath the pot with water. That'll rot your plant. If you want to take it outside to water and then you want to put a saucer underneath it afterward, that's fine. But you have to be, these plants are very, very hardy and they do not need much attention. Lately, they have not liked our weather. It is too hot. They don't like this much heat. And some of my succulents have even fried, and I'm going to show you one right here with a sunburned leaf. It's hard to show plants when I zoom, but you can see the red leaves. Those are from being sunburned. They were out in too much sun, and they did not like it. And so they have turned brown, and now I have to prune them off to have new plants underneath. This is a very popular plant. It's called kalanchoe, and people have it in their homes. And it can go very well in your home, but it doesn't like heavy sun. It needs sun, but not heavy sun. Actually, the rule of thumb is green succulents need a little bit of shade. If you have succulents that have blue, I've got some here. If they're blue or some other colors, they can handle the sun better, the red and the blue. But none of them like the weather we've been having, including us. We don't like it either. So my advice to you is if any of your succulents burned, wait till the heat wave's over, and then you should prune them. And when you prune them, I'm going to show you here, always do so at an angle. Do not cut straight across, you cut down. This is so you don't get diseases in the stems by cutting down. So you want to get all of this dead stuff. However, this plant is so hardy, you can take off some of this dead things and replant it. It'll come back. They are very hard to kill. The main reason people kill them is they overwater. The other way people kill them is they over fertilize. They do like a little fertilizer. And I fertilize them about once every couple months, and I use fish emulsion, which is kind of watery. You mix it with water and feed them. They like to have a little fertilizer. You can go 6 months without fertilizing them. Most people have their succulents in pots because they like to reproduce, and some reproduce faster than others. And I don't know, if you have a big yard and you want to fill it with succulents, they will fill in, especially one called Mother of Thousands, which I have one here. They just take over. So if you wanted to just have a few, and it's good to put them in pots. I'll show you what some of the pots I do. This is called the helicopter plant, and it's part of the kalanchoe family because it's got these nice thick leaves, and it gives new babies, and it's perfectly happy in this pot, but not for long. It's going very fast. Here's one that has a kind of an orange color. This can handle, is the color coming through for you? It looks kind of green, I don't know. It's kind of a reddish color, and it can handle more sun than the other ones. As you can see, this one is taking over. It's coming out of the pot and needs to be repotted, or else I can prune it back and just start another plant, which is a nice thing to do, although eventually you'll have so many pots. I give them as gifts often. The other thing you do with plants, with succulents, very popular, to put them in little containers. This one is a teacup, and it has a bunch of different ones. You can put them in old shoes, you can put them in dresser drawers, you can put them in chairs, bicycles, whatever. They're real happy. You know, they don't need much soil. And if you put them in something like this, there's no drainage. So you have to be very careful not to overwater. You can let this one go months without watering it because there's no drainage. I'm going to show you how to make your own arrangement. This is a clamshell, and it's a real clamshell. And I put some perlite mixed with potting soil. I don't know if you're familiar with perlite. Perlite you mix with your potted plants so they don't clump up. It just keeps it free flowing. And you just need to mix a little bit in there with it. Okay, I'm gonna try to rearrange this so it's down, so it's looking at that. Not really, is it? Okay, I'm gonna have to hold it. When I plant things, this is not working, I use this. This is to help them root. You just stick them in here. It's a white powder just at the end, and then you stick them in your whatever you're doing here. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I'm making a little garden here. I already pruned these way back, but here's one that didn't get cut. And these, as I said before, these are really nice little gifts to give people. And especially children, I think they like to have their own little gardens and watch them grow. And they don't have to do much work. Okay, you see how I'm doing this? Is there any questions on any of this? I just stuck a bunch of little things in here, and I'll stick another one because you want them to be real happy. They like to be crowded, so they're not a problem with that. And here's another one here. So, okay, this one has some blue ones and some red ones. This is a type of jade plant, this one, which is, you can't kill that at all. And it'll grow really big. These are going to be big and they'll soon come out of this container. But I'm going to just water it very lightly. I'm not going to do it today, but after I'm finished here, I'm going to water it very lightly and probably will not water it again and depending on the weather, of course, till it is totally dry. I don't know if any of you have the moisture meters that you stick in the ground. Anybody familiar with those? You stick in the ground and you can tell if your plant needs water. It'll tell you. And that's also a good thing to have. And I do that on mine because, you know, you're sticking your finger down in there to see if you need moisture, and it's not always accurate. It's there if you have one of the moisture meters, and they sell them everywhere, Home Depot or, you know, any of those places.
What is the name of the powder you stick the stems in before planting?
To make it root, it's called Take Root. Can you read that? No?
Take Root. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is by Schultz, but it says hormone acronym, but it will, there's different brands of this. It just helps it root faster. But I don't think it's a real problem with succulents. They root really pretty fast. The other thing with succulents is birds like to, you know, come in and have the flowers and stuff. So after it flowers, leave the flowers on a little bit so the birds can eat them. They eat the dead flowers and then get rid of them. So I don't have any little dead flowers. Also,
and sorry, when you divide succulents, is it best to cut them or pinch them to separate them and replant?
well, whatever you want, it doesn't matter. Some people pinch them, but, and I usually just cut them, but you can do either one. One thing about succulents is they're pretty hardy. It's pretty hard to kill them, and they can go without water, and they're just fun. You know, you make big pots full of them, different colors. They're really pretty in gardens. You know, they're just hard. This is well, I'm going to finish my thing about the birds. This is why I don't use pesticides, is the birds. Sometimes mealy bugs get into succulents, and they're little white bugs that get into, like, in the middle here. I just spray it with a heavy water, like hose, you know, full blast, until they start falling off, and they will. But when you start using pesticides and the birds come along to eat your flowers, they're going to get sick with the pesticides. So I'm rather anti-pesticides. This one is very common, and it comes in black and green. And it's one, I think it's kind of rare, but it goes, excuse me, it goes in hibernation during the summer. This is hibernating now. See how it looks dead? You can look, can you look at these leaves? And people have thrown these away. It'll come back in the winter time, but right now it's protecting itself. It's in my sprinkler garden, so it gets sprinkled. You know, some people don't water them when they're hibernating, but mine get wet, so they're fine with it. But they do look pretty awful. In fact, one lady said to me that she said, "You bring these old dried up ones." I said, "I didn't bring it. It just dried up because it's in hibernation, and I know this plant does hibernate." And they're huge everywhere, but you'll see them, they'll come back in the spring, and they have big yellow flowers. Most all of your succulents have flowers, but you sometimes have to be patient. They don't bloom right away. Okay. Oh, the biggest family that I usually talk about is the Kalanchoe family. It's over 125 species. And this one's furry. I know it's really hard to tell, isn't it? Can you see? It's kind of furry, but their leaves are big and thick. That's where they hold all their moisture. That's very common with the Kalanchoe family, that they hold it in the leaves. And you need to maintain these, because these leaves will get brown at the bottom. And it's better if you just pinch it like that, just pull it off. And always maintain your plants. Also, that helps keep pests out too, if you get rid of the dead leaves. So you want to look at them every once in a while and get rid of the dead leaves. Master Gardeners right now is doing a demonstration garden at the operations center, the county operations center. It's just a little box I have of succulents there. And if you wanted to go and look at them, they have a lot of natives, and they have a lot of other stuff there too. And it just shows you the different types of succulents that are available. There are over 125 species alone in the Kalanchoe family. So you can imagine how many there are. Do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. A question from Nancy Dimsdale. What is the hibernating plant called?
What is what?
The hibernating plant. What is it called?
You know what? I couldn't remember the name of it this morning, and I know I asked my husband if he remembered it. I can't remember the name of it. I don't know. I've just lost the name. That's why I'm not saying it.
Is it black rose?
Yes,
perhaps?
they're black and they're green, and this one is green and kind of brown. They come in different colors.
Got it. And then a question from Gail Liu. What kind of fertilizer do you use?
I use the fish emulsion. You can buy fish emulsion in a big, huge gallon container, and you mix it with a little water and or a lot of water, whatever, and use it on your plants. But as I said, you don't have to do much fertilizer for these plants. And I have a friend that grows them on her fence. They require very little soil. You can grow them on practically anything. but you have to maintain them. There isn't a plant around, because people say, oh, these are easy, they're no maintenance. I don't think that's I think that's an oxymoron. I don't think there is any plants that don't require some maintenance, but this requires very little. So as far as, and as I said, like this plant, see with the dead leaves, I could just take this off and replant it, and I have a new plant. Even though it's been sunburned and everything, I just could knock that out. Don't be afraid of these. Just have fun with them. They're fun plants. They're not that delicate. They can last a long time. Okay, I see there's a bunch of questions in chat. I don't know what's in chat. Is there any more questions? No?
We've been reading through them. So far, no more questions.
Okay.
Oh, I have a question. Hi, I'm Gail. What kind of soil do you recommend when you are propagating or cutting the succulents and then dip it in the root powder and then put it in the soil?
Okay, this one is what I did. I just used potting soil mixed with perlite.
Okay.
They're not fussy.
Okay.
There's not very much soil in here because it's not that deep.
No, it doesn't look very deep at all.
It's not very deep, and it's not going to hold water. Believe me, they'll grow. When I do this in person, I usually raffle this off because I usually do one and then raffle it off because they're kind of fun to have, because you're amazed at all of these things that can grow with hardly anything.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. You have a question? I see this man speaking, but I can't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you
Okay,
now.
sorry. I have some what I call fire sticks in my rock garden.
Yeah,
Euphorbia something.
sticks of
And,
fire. Yeah.
You know, they're supposed to turn orange and red, but mine get orange and red tips occasionally, but for the most part, and right now, they're very green. So is that probably because I'm overwatering?
Well, there's two types of those plants. There's sticks and there's sticks of fire. They're two varieties. The sticks are just green. The sticks of fire have the red and orange color.
Mine are supposed to be fire sticks.
Okay, so it's supposed to be sticks.
Yeah. Now they're close to the sprinkler in my backyard, so they're getting some water about 3 times a week, and so I'm wondering if that's
probably too much.
Maybe is keeping them from really turning red. And
well, I don't know what kind of soil you have. Do you have soil where they can drain fast, or is it clay?
It's actually in a fairly large pot that has a hole, you know, does have drain.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, they probably are being a little overwatered. 3 times a week is pretty excessive. Even during this time of the year with this heat and stuff, I've been watering once a week.
Okay.
That's plenty. They don't need a bunch of water.
All right, I'll just move it away from the irrigation system.
Yeah, that's probably a better thing.
Okay.
And the thing with sticks of fire, people are kind of leery about them because their sap is poisonous. But you know what? A lot of plants, oleanders, sequoia palms, a lot of plants, their sap is poisonous. So it won't hurt you as long as you don't stick it in your mouth or your eye. So
right.
Just when you're trimming them, wear gloves and just wash your hands. That's what I always tell people, because people are, oh, I'm going to die by touching it. But no, but if it gets into either your eyes or your mouth, any sap is, you know.
That's a bad situation.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh. Any more questions on any of this? Okay. The other thing I was going to talk about was when I was talking about pinching them back or cutting them back, whatever you want to do, it's very important that you do that so they don't get to be like this, which is leggy. See, this is the epitome of what you don't want. fire, they're burned, they're leggy, they need to be pruned, and they need to be attended to. But you can see, if you can see in the bottom of the pot, I'm getting a whole new crop in there. So I need to get rid of this top part here so the other plants can come out and survive. So it's very important that you get rid of any kind of thing. And when they start, they'll tell you when they're thirsty, they'll tell you when they want to get out of the pot because they start climbing over the side. So if you just look at them, you can tell when they say, I need to get, this one is very, very dry because it has no drainage. And it'll probably not grow as fast, but you know, you don't want a big one for this. This one I've had for probably a couple of years, and it was smaller, but it's grown quite a bit.
Some of mine are getting leggy, and I didn't know to cut them back. Thank you.
This is another plant that's quite popular called elephant foot because it grows up and then it grows all down on the ground. In fact, at the elephant cages in the zoo, this is all outside there. These are invasive. If you love them, they have little purple flowers on them, but they will take over. So it's all, I don't know how much room you have in your yard. I have a very small yard, so I keep a lot of my succulents in pots, and the ones that I do put in the ground, I am very careful about pruning them back constantly so they don't become big, because I don't want them to be all in my yard.
Lynn, I have a question. How
Sure.
do you propagate paddle-looking succulents?
Oh yeah, the paddle plant. Yeah,
Mhm.
those, I have those. Those are easy to propagate. They make all of the succulents make new babies or pups or whatever you want, you know, they make new plants. So you have to wait till the plant has a little bit of a stem to it, like at least 1 or 2 inches, and then cut it and just stick it in the ground. I stuck one of those in my yard because I really like those. And they're not that fast moving, you know, everything's invasive, but it's not propagating really fast. Those are, all of them are the same, as easy. This is one that's not real common, called Medusa. And it's just like this, and it just goes out and it has little yellow flowers. This one you can see, I was just bringing this one up here. See where the sun has been? The sun has been right over here. So all of them are growing this way. Okay, all of them are growing that way instead of all around, which they should grow. So sometimes you might have to move your plants when you have, you know, especially during the seasons. Some months it's, you know, you get more sun in one spot, so you might want to move your your pot when it gets into another season, so it doesn't get just one-sided where it's climbing out of the pot on the one side. And the other thing is when you buy new succulents, if you go to the nursery or whatever, I usually just get snips from my friends' yards. Master gardeners, we all change, you know, we bring snips in exchange, but you can buy them at nurseries and stuff. But look carefully. If they're under cloth, that means that they like shade. And if they're out there in the sun, that means that they can handle heavy sun. And also, I always say, look around your neighborhood. We have a lot of microclimates in San Diego. If you live at the beach, it's totally different than if you live in El Cajon. You know, the climate's different plants survive differently. The succulents probably would survive both places, but they would be happier in probably the middle part because it gets pretty hot in El Cajon, and I don't think they'd like the salt air very much. So a lot of plants don't like the salt air, but most of them can survive, you know, and a lot of them are hardy even. So it just depends. Any more questions? Let's see. Because I usually have a lot of questions, and I usually hand out succulents and tell people if they have a certain kind that's their favorite, what they like about it or want. Wait.
There's a question from Joni. Are there certain succulents to avoid as houseplants if you have a cat? She knows that fire sticks are poisonous. Are there others?
Yes, sacral palm's poisonous. And sticks of fire and oleander. But cats usually aren't that stupid. They usually don't chew on them. At least I've never heard of a cat chewing on them. They wouldn't be tasty. I don't know if you've ever had that problem, but yeah, I took a class and it was like the 10 most toxic plants. And a lot of your palm trees are toxic, but cats don't chew on them, and even dogs don't chew on them. I don't know. I've never heard of it. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I wouldn't think that they would. And you'd have to chew all the way through it. The plant itself is not poisonous. It's the sap. That's what's the poison is in the sap. So you get it on your fingers and then you stick it in your eye, stick it in your mouth. I really don't think that animals would be a problem with that. I've never heard of it anyway. And I've never heard of anybody having problems with their animal eating any of their poisonous plants.
She asked that question because her cat does like to chew plants. So.
Oh, well, then I wouldn't have him, if he's chewing on them, I wouldn't have him near him, that he could chew all the way through. He'd have to chew all the way through and get at the sap. Yeah, that's the poison part. That's amazing. Look at, does he chew on all of these kind of plants like this one? Because I think a lot of these have sap that are not good. This one, he could probably chew on and be okay. This one is everywhere. And see, it's orange at the top. It's very, what's a good word? It has a flower on the top, very prolific, and it can hold up under probably the desert. Although I planted a bunch of succulents in that succulent garden, and then we had that week where it was 100 degrees and stuff. And this was in Kearney Mesa, and I fried some of my succulents. They actually fried. So a shade cloth would have been good, but that's really rare in San Diego. Hopefully we don't have that kind of weather again. We have days of, extreme heat, but they wouldn't like cold either. I did a talk for the Ramona Garden Club, and they said they have frost. I said, you gotta bring them into the house or toward the house, because they're not gonna like frost either. I don't know where you live, but if you have frost, they're not gonna like that either. They don't like to be that cold. So, and I know we do have areas in San Diego that do get frost besides Ramona. Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, I don't know, that's about all. I was going to show you one other little one. This one is kind of a polka dotted one. Sometimes they become different varieties, and they're very similar to the other plant. And you think, oh, it's the same thing, but it isn't. It's little different polka dots or lines. And usually if they're variegated or they have polka dots, they're not as hardy as the original plant. It doesn't have that.
I'm sorry, what is that?
This plant?
Yeah.
I don't know what the name of it is. It's in the Kalanchoe family. It's one of the succulents. It's also, it gets pretty good size, big. I'm sorry, I can't remember all the names of plants. That is not but when you see a plant that you like, and you might see it in your neighborhood, they have a thing on an app. I have it on my phone. You can take a picture of it, and it tells you what kind of plant it is and where it can grow. But San Diego basically has weather where most all the plants can grow, all the succulents. Some of them just have to be a little more careful with them than others. Does anybody here have big succulent gardens in their yard? No?
Not big, but moderate.
Yeah, because they're really becoming popular now because of the drought, and also they are pretty. They bloom, all of them bloom, and you have a lot of different color flowers, and yeah, and they basically don't have a lot of problems with diseases. They get mealy bugs and some of the other stuff, but not, they're not fussy like roses and stuff. I think less and less people are getting roses because they like water. I don't know.
A question from Fran Shepherd.
Okay.
Yes, I have a horsetail reed that was doing beautifully for years. I goofed and chopped it. I chopped off like 2/3, almost killed it. So I started to water. I wasn't sure, so I just watered it a lot. And then I noticed that my yucca plant had blossomed and had more branches on it that had a lot of leaves that may have been putting more shade on it. So I just broke off one of those branches of the yucca. So it seems to get more sun now, plus the extra water. So it seems to be reviving. Am I on the right track?
Well, I would say, yeah, about the yucca branches. I have the blue agave in my front yard, and I have to have my husband cut the branches off because they provide too much shade for the plants. But I wouldn't overwater it too much.
Okay.
And be careful that don't keep it wet. Let it dry out completely before you water it again.
Thanks. I have learned someone, I had a Vietnamese guy come by, and I wanted him to give me more succulents, some large pots with more succulents, and maybe get rid of some of my little old grandma plants. So he put his hand in some of a lot of my pieces, and he says, too dry, you water, more water. I said, well, I'm watering three nights a week. He says, 4 nights a week. Too dry, you water, I come back October. So he was gone. But he did tell me that my blue potato bush always has a million leaves, but I couldn't get the purple flowers. And right away he said that one needs to have a lot more water.
I have a blue potato bush that gets watered maybe once every 2 weeks, and it's fine.
Oh my gosh. I've been watering mine like crazy.
It sounds to me like you're over watering. And the thing is, plants adapt too. Sometimes they just die if overwatering, but you never want moist soil. There are some plants that do require moist soil, but not succulents, and not the potato.
Right, that's true, because they're cactuses, right?
Yeah, they're not cactuses.
The blue potato is blooming finally after years and years, but it's in a huge pot that takes a lot of water. So my water bill now is $300.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Do you have one of those moisture meters you could stick in there and see how much?
No,
yeah,
no, I do not.
They might be worth the investment. I could go down and get mine. You just stick it in, and it tells you how much water's in there. And if I wait till it's totally dry, because you stick your finger, and especially if it's a big pot, you can't get your finger all the way down in there, and it might be still water down in there.
It sure is happier though when it finally has beautiful purple flowers.
Yeah. Well, I always say err on the less water. Do not err on overwatering, because most plants die from overwatering. Some of them die from underwatering, but very few. I've seen succulents go months without being watered, and they can, you can stick them in. I put some in my car one time and I forgot about them, and I found them under the seat, and I planted them and they were fine. They were just pieces. So that, you can just really have fun with your succulents. And I would mix them. And, I don't know if you guys get together in person, but if you get together in person, you can bring pieces of your garden and swap, because that's really fun.
Oh, yes.
A lady was telling me about a place in Chula Vista that they actually have open to the public, where everybody brings plant snippings and they swap. I think that's a wonderful idea, because most of these just grow from cuttings. They're not a problem at all.
Lynn, is the moisturizer that you're talking about something specific to succulents?
Let me just go get mine. They're real simple. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. It's very little. See it?
Mm-hmm.
Can you read it?
Yes.
Okay. You just stick it in the bottom of the plant. Let's look at it. This one's pretty dry. Okay. Stick it in there. You probably can't see it. There it is.
Yeah.
So it says, this one's got lots of moisture in there. Well, when I'm lifting it, it's moving around, but it's fine. And yet it doesn't feel wet, but it's, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So just this little teeny thing.
My question though was, is it specific to succulents, or is it used?
No, you can use it in your lawn.
Okay.
You can use it anywhere.
Okay.
In fact, they have more sophisticated ones. I bought my nephew one because he was curious about it, and his has pH on it and all kinds of other stuff.
Mm,
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
I know, but this was just a moisturizer tester. I just have the moisturizer. You
okay.
can stick it in anything. You can stick it in the ground, you know, for to find out. And they're not, they're pretty low price because you can see their little teeny thing. I can't even remember what I paid for it because I bought him the more fancy one. But yeah, just this is very easy. Stick it in, but you don't have to stick it in a pot. You can stick it in the ground. I don't know. I have clay soil, which holds moisture.
Yes.
So I water less, you know, and it looks real dry on the top. So I can stick this in and see if there's water down below that I can't see, or moisture, I should say. Yeah, that's a really good tool to have, because I think of most plants die from overlove, from overwatering.
Joni was wondering, do you recommend any succulents that could replace a lawn?
Yes, you can. A lot of people are using them in their front yard, but you know what they have now too? They have a lot of ground covers that aren't exactly succulents, but are very drought tolerant. And one of them is called winter white or something. You can walk on them. They look wonderful. And, you know, because like people say, well, I really still want to have a lawn because of my dogs or whatever. This is perfect. They can do that. Then it doesn't cost all the water, and it's, you know, easier to maintain. You don't have to mow it. But there is a man in Riverside. I don't know if you've seen this in the newspaper. He's with the University of Riverside, and he's making a new grass strain that's going to be drought tolerant. And he's, you know, been working on it for quite a few years. And that's how we get new varieties, is these people come up with things. And they're coming up with more and more drought resistant plants. You know, they're interbreeding plants or whatever, and making them so they are more drought retardant.
Fran, you had a question?
Yes, I'm on my front porch. Someone had suggested on chat that we get it together for swapping cuttings.
I'm sorry, say it again. It's breaking up for me.
People always tell
Yeah, it's
white trap cups that look like water their plant. And it has a lid on the top. Mine is proliferating. Every couple of years, I divide it like into
You know, is it only me, but you're really breaking up? It's very hard for me.
No, it's not
Yeah.
you. It's
So
not
if we
just
do a
you.
plant swap, I could bring
Yeah.
you two.
Fran, you're breaking up. Would you mind putting that in the chat, please? And I
Yeah.
believe what you were saying is that, yes, I think Shirley put in the chat that everyone should meet for a plant swap if they're interested. Joni also put in that the Nextdoor app has a succulent group, which meets periodically to swap cuttings. In Encinitas and Carlsbad, there might be other locations as well. So
Yeah.
if that's, mhm.
I know there's a one in Chula Vista because I did a talk down there and the ladies told me about it. So I said, oh. I live in Terrasana, which is probably in the middle of the county, you know, close to a lot of stuff. And I'm on a hill, so I'm not real dry or hot. And I have a lot of slopes. These things grow on slopes. You know, if you have slopes, you can plant plants. I don't have any lawn at all. I have all the succulents growing down in my yard because I'm on a hill and a slope. So the person that was asking about could it replace lawn? Yes, it could. But the thing is, you can't sit on it and play on it like a lawn. What I was suggesting more is the drought resistant ground coverings that can be, you can walk on them and play on them and everything. And they look fine and they don't require a lot of water and they don't mow. They just spread out. And some of them are quite attractive, I think. I've seen them in people's, they seem to be more and more of them in people's yards. But also a lot of people want to go native. Succulents are not native to San Diego, but they do fine here. They're native to South Africa and Madagascar mainly, and they have similar climates to our climate. So they do just fine here, just like eucalyptus trees do just fine here. They're not native to here
Right.
either. I don't know if that answers your question. So what I suggest is I think it'd be really nice to get together, have a big swap and try different ones and put them all together in one pot. You know, it makes it more interesting when you have different colors and different varieties. And one of my friends goes to swap meets and yard sales and picks up all kinds of old junk pots and pans and plants, succulents, and sells them, you know, in unusual. She had one that was a chair and the seat, she had all plants on it. So you can do a lot of different things. You know, they're a plant that's very versatile and easier to maintain than a lot of other plants. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Lynn.
Okay, well, I hope we got some information. I did have a flyer. I don't know if Shirley had problems with it being blurry. Did she ever get it out to you guys?
Anya loaded it on the chat. And
Uh-huh.
so everyone, if you go to the very top thing on the chat, you'll see that the handout is there and you can download it and
Oh,
save it.
Okay, great.
Right.
And it just basically goes over what I said. It's the care, but I know sometimes you don't remember everything, so much information. So you can just look at that. And it shows you it shows you some pictures of different plants that are kalanchoe. And they just mainly that they're outdoor plants and indoor plants. I have them both in and out. But if you have them inside, make sure they get sun. If you have them outside, make sure they don't get too much sun. So.
Well, thanks so much, Lynn. I really appreciate your knowledge and also your relaxed attitude about plants. It makes it so much easier to be, you know, willing to try to do things and not be worried about, is this going to work or not, or whatever, you know, just try it and see.
I know, well, these plants, I really do suggest just have fun with them because you can be relaxed with them. They just, I mean, I gave them to my nieces and nephews, my when they were young, and they all had their own little plant and they were all excited about it. Don't water it. And then, you know, if you do it at an early age, then you do become relaxed about it because you know that they're hardy But I
Yeah.
also talk to my plants when they're not looking good. I go, wait a minute, you got to get healthy here. Because I get different diseases. I mean, when we have this kind of climate, it's prone to diseases too sometimes. But,
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
but just squirt them with a hose, strong, like a fireman hose, strong spout. Get everything off of it.
Wash it off.
Yeah, I know. I wish we'd have rain like that. That helps them too.
Yeah.